Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for yet more dedicated legacy action. Today we are playing Hogaak, specifically the Sultai version. So what is the Hogaak deck? Well, as you can imagine, it involves the card Hogaak. Essentially this is pretty close to what the modern deck was once upon a time that was kind of broken and ended up getting banned. So what we want to do is put a load of cards into our graveyard and then cast 2 creature spells, bringing back Vengevines. And then we also have Hogaaks that we can bring back, and Bloodghasts, and we have Bridge from Below to keep making more tokens by sacking them using Altar of Dementia or these Cabal therapies. That's pretty much it. We want to get our opponent dead in the first few turns of the game, or at least provide an overwhelming force that we can grind them down over a couple of turns. So in order to do this, we've got a lot of enablers. So we've got Careful Studies, which is really useful for getting these things that are in our hand into the graveyard. We have Hedron Crabs, which is just a very powerful mill engine with all these fetch lands, which also combo with the landfall on Bloodghast. We have Stitches Supplier, which can mill us 6 cards in total, as well as being a good thing to sacrifice, and it's also a black creature to help get Hogaak back. We have Gravecrawler, which is getting to come back off of Bridge from Below tokens, as well as Stitches Supplier, which is itself a zombie, so that can help bring them back. And we have 1 Putrid Imp to get things out of our hand. So we've got 5 cards to get things out of our hand. We can use Cabal Therapy if we're hard pressed for it, but generally this is supposed to be interacting with our opponent because our deck doesn't do much interacting outside of killing our opponent. What we can do with this deck though, is we can set up a loop. Well, it's not quite a loop, but we can basically keep replaying Hogaak and sacking tokens to do it. So we can keep generating chunks of 8. So we can mill out pretty much our whole deck with an Altar of Dementia, and then just mill out our opponent over the course of a few loops of that. Because we'll be able to sacrifice Hogaak a few times and then sacrifice all our guys with Bridge from Below that we're getting for every time we sacrifice these to then mill our opponent out. So that's a backup way you can win through like something like an Ensnaring Bridge, for example. That's basically it for the main deck. We have 1 Dryad Arbor in the list, which is relatively important to note, which might come and bite us every now and then, but it is a creature we can get with a land, which gives us another Altar of Dementia thing, and it also taps to play Hogaak. So it's relatively useful there. Sideboard wise, as you'd imagine from a deck that's pretty linear, our sideboard is also quite linear. We have 4 Force of Vigor for things like Leyline of the Void, and Grafdigger's Cage, and that sort of thing, and Stone Bridge as well. We have 4 Leyline of the Void, because sometimes we need to stop our opponent's graveyard because there are graveyard decks that are faster than this, for example, Reanimator. We have 2 Thoughtseize to supplement our Cabal therapies to hopefully punch a hole through and discard our opponent a bit. Some Repliques to blow up things, a bit like Force of Vigor here, so we might be boarding in these as a package together, but it also depends what we're up against. Depends on how much we'll need the Repliques. A Boseiju, which is another way of blowing things up that's uncounterable. As you can see, there's a theme here. We've got 8 cards dedicated to hitting hate pieces for us. And then we have a Sylvan Library for those games where we need to go a little bit longer, perhaps. That's more or less it. This was a list that I think it top 8'd the last Legacy Challenge. I think it came 8th in the last Legacy Challenge. So we haven't seen a lot of Hogaak for a while, because there's a lot of graveyard hate in the format and it obviously hits this deck quite hard. But I thought I'd give it a go because I think I have this deck in paper. I've never actually played it at a tournament. I'm pretty sure I sort of traded for bits for this deck. And I like the way this deck works. I really like graveyard decks. I love Bloodghast, so this is kind of my jam. And I kind of wanted to do a quick league today because the last one I did was a very long one to record, and I've also got to get it up early in the morning. So we're going to jump into this one tonight and see how we do. But before we do that, if you wouldn't mind subscribing, it doesn't cost you anything and really helps me out. If you've already subscribed, why not like and leave a comment? Alternatively, send a link to one of your friends who might be interested in watching dedicated legacy content 5 days a week. Alright, let's jump into a league with Hogaak. So this is our opening hand. We're on the draw. So this isn't the most exciting of hands. We get to play Hedron Crab and mill ourselves for 3. I don't think that's enough. I think we should mulligan. Like we can play these things, but is playing a bunch of 2/1s going to do anything here? So you can play out the Gravecrawler, next time we can play out Hedron Crab followed by playing a land and milling stuff and see what happens. I think we can mulligan because we don't really need a lot of these cards. This is just better because we get to get the Hedron Crab going super early here, and we've got loads of fetch lands for it. So we can keep this, and we can bin off one of these. We probably don't want the Dryad Arbor. I'll bin off the Dryad Arbor and say done. Now, if our Hadron Crab dies, that's going to suck for us, but such is the nature of things. All we want to do is put cards in our graveyard. We don't play out the Hadron Crab on turn 1 because it can get killed. Let's go and get an Underground Sea, a Verdant Catacombs. Our opponent's only on 5 cards. Let's Cabal Therapy, targeting our opponent. They just let it go. What decks play Verdant Catacombs? It could be like a bug control deck. It could be one of these elf decks. There's a lot of options here. But it didn't make a 1-drop. So which of these decks wouldn't make a 1-drop? But they were on 5 cards. It could be some sort of Reanimator deck. And they might just untap and entomb here. I think worst case scenario is that they're a Reanimator deck. 4 cards. Okay. And we can't do anything else this turn. We might lose our Hadron Crab here, which would be devastating for us. Yeah, so there's our Hadron Crab. So we are... What do they exile for this? Dark Ritual. So Dark Ritual's gone. And the Unmask is gone. So this is pretty bad for us. We'll play this one out. We can hit the Reanimate by sacrificing our guy. Alternatively, we can go and get a Dryad Arbor and do that, which is probably better here. Let's give that a go. Get this Dryad Arbor out. And then we will flashback Cabal Therapy, tag our opponent, sacrificing our Dryad Arbor. And we will name Reanimate. Yeah, so we leave them with just the Lotus Petal in hand. This could be a weird game. We do have these ley lines in the board, which is helpful. We need to find some action in this game. Avenge Vine. Well, in a few turns, we're going to have some action, I suppose. We're going to have to hardcast this Avenge Vine and try and win the old-fashioned way. But if we can get our opponent's life total low enough that if they do get a Grizzlebrand into play, it can't kill us, that would be lovely. If they can't draw cards off of it, if we can get them below 7 life. Okay, so let's go and get some green sources. I'll buy you. And this one can be an Underground Sea. We can go and get another buy if we need to. Green, green, blue, blue. Go to tax. Okay, so we put them to 10 this turn, and then we've got to fade a draw step here. And then we can at least make them so their Grizzlebrand doesn't kill us. Doesn't let them draw a load of cards. Let's cast this Careful Study. We'll bin off these 2 cards. We'll play this Hadron Crab. We might be able to get Avenge Vine here and finish them off. So it's worth milling ourselves here for this. Let's pop our graveyard out so we can see what we're doing. We did find the Avenge Vine. And we'll go and get Bayou here. Okay, let's scoop it up. So we're going to get the Avenge Vine this turn by replaying the Gravecrawler, and then we're going to swing for exactly 10. Actually, no, it'll be 12 because of the Bloodghast as well. All right, we can begin sideboarding now. So our opponent's deck will not like to play against Leyline in the Void. That's a given. Now, will they have their own Leylines of the Void? That is the question. As a general rule, the Reanimator decks have moved on to Doughty Voidwalker as their sort of go-to thing that they're doing to get around people's graveyards and things. So, knowing that, do we want these Abrupt Decays? Now, they're not very good against a lot of their deck. They can hit Petals, which can sometimes be good, and they can hit our opponent's Animate Deads, but they're mainly there for the Doughty Voidwalkers, which is kind of the new hotness. The Cabal Therapies are okay. We need to interact with our opponent's hand. Need to work out what we're doing away with. We can probably do a little bit of trimming here. I don't really want the Hogaaks too much because they can reanimate our Hogaaks, which is a little bit worrying. So we can trim a couple of those. And we don't really want to... Do you want the Ultra Adventurous a little bit slower? So we can probably trim a couple of those. And then we'd probably just get rid of something like Careful Studies, trim on those, and maybe only just keep the 2 Abrupt Decays in. Let's try this. We can reappraise the situation if we see some things in our opponent's deck. Not really played much Hogaak before. So we have 2 Ley Lines of the Void. I think we have to keep this. So this hand will be good against Wear Tear, but bad against Serenity. And if we have a second land, we can start to Altar of Dementia ourselves pretty hard. Because we don't have a lot of land here, we're just going to put both of the Ley Lines in now. We're weak to Serenity, but we're better against Wear Tear, which is fine. We know what our issues are here. So let's crack this. And we want to get an Underground Sea. So we have 2 choices here. We can either Stitch the Supplier or we can Cabal Therapy. If we Cabal Therapy, we can name Serenity. And then next turn we can play the Stitch the Supplier and name Show and Tell, which is the other thing they can have. Okay, so they've got the Show and Tell here. That's fine. So we can hit the Show and Tell next turn. So we have to hope they don't draw a Lotus Petal here. Okay. So we need Lotus Petal. Then you need 2 Lotus Petals now. So I think we're okay. We can Stitch the Supplier and we get to hit their hand and also mill ourselves for 6. And if we draw a second land, we might be able to bring some stuff back, depending on what we hit. Be nice to have a way of getting this Bridge from Below out. So what did they get rid of here? So the Faithless Looting is gone, the Unmask is gone, and there's a spare Lotus Petal. Okay. That's our turn. So we will cast this. So I mill myself for 3. That's okay. And then we will Cabal Therapy, targeting our opponent, sacrificing this guy. And we'll name Show and Tell. So they have Archon of Cruelty, Reanimate, and Swamp. What they can do is they can reanimate our creatures, which is a little bit annoying. We do have a 4/3, but at least we don't have the Hogaak in there. Yeah, so there's the Reanimate on the Vengevine. Hopefully we can outpace this. And there's a Swamp. Okay, so let's Stitch a Supplier. Grave, that's what we got here. Play this one out. Always yield Bloodgust. And then we can crack this. Probably for a Bayou this time. And then we can cast this Gravecrawler, which gets back our Vengevine. And we can go to attacks. So we are quite far ahead in this race. So our opponent had to take 4 just to reanimate the Vengevine. And we can play Altar of Dementia next turn and really start doing some silly things a turn after that. A Hedron Crab. I don't think that changes anything here. Maybe just play out this. We go to attacks. So also take a punch here. We don't want to do Ultra Dementia things yet because they can reanimate a Hogaak if we find one. So we'd rather do it in their end step or in our turn. Okay, so they're scooping it up. So we got 1-0 on the board, pretty good. Our opponent's hand in game 1 was very poor. We had a reasonable hand to tackle what our opponent was doing. Playing the Cabal Therapy turn 1 was the correct choice that helped us. Even though we didn't get to hit the thing straight away, it set us up so we could definitely Cabal Therapy with information on the second turn and hit the Show and Tell, which probably would have been able to bury us under the Archon of Cruelty. So happy with that one. Let's go on to round 2. We're on the play for game 2, for round 2, sorry, and this hand is unplayable because we have no lands, so we have to mulligan it. We don't really want these 2 in our opening hand, so this may as well be a 1-card hand with the Stitch the Supplier. So I think we have to mulligan again. And this is a bit better. I think we can keep this. We are putting these on the bottom, but we're going to shuffle our library, so it's not the end of the world. Bridge from Below and the Hogaak are the 2 weakest things in our hand here. So we say done here. So we could have a blind name with Cabal Therapy if we wanted to. But I think our correct play here is just to play out Stitch the Supplier. Make sure our graveyard is popped out so we can see all our wonderful toys. If I was to do a blind Cabal Therapy, I would cast it naming Brainstorm most of the time. Unless my opponent was a Yorion deck, and then it's a little trickier because there's sort of different axes that it can be. Okay, Once Upon a Time. So this could be one of the sort of new Fiend Artisan, not quite Elf decks. It could be the White Stompy deck, which I've seen running Once Upon a Time, purely for the purposes of having the best turn 1 to 2 that it can have. which makes sense because it pretty much ends the game on turns 1 to 2. Gaia's Cradle. Okay, so this is looking like one of the Newton Elf decks, or Orcs, or however you like to term it. Bunch of green creatures, Fiend Artisan, some silver bullets, and a natural order. That's what I'm expecting from my opponent's deck. An Elvish Reclaimer. Sure. So the scariest thing our opponent can have is natural order, I think. So let's see what we find. A Hedron Crab. Now this is unfortunate the way our mana is set up here. Okay. So step 1 I think is Cabal Therapy targeting our opponent. We will name Natural Order. They tend to only have one Endurance main deck. So what have we got here? Let's make sure we can keep an eye on our opponent's hand. We need the Cradle. Okay, so what do we want to hit here? Archon of Amira is a little bit annoying. They can't cast the next turn though. They only have access to green mana. If we take out the Allosaurus Shepherd or the Elvish Reclaimer, that can be quite good here. So we will cast this, targeting our opponent, sacrificing this. We do this before we play lands in case we hit more Bloodghasts. And this time, what are we going to name? Okay, so they got the crop rotation for the BUG Hogaak here. So we could have played around that by playing the Misty Rainforest out to get our Bloodghast. We're only losing 1 Bloodghast from this exchange. But the crop rotation is gone now. And the Elvish Spirit Guide is gone. So it's not the end of the world for us. So we will name... this is a tricky one here. The Archon Mirror is going to be annoying later down the line. The Allosaurus Shepherd is going to give them a win condition. I think we might have to play for the slightly longer game, which isn't even going to be that long because of Cradle. So I think we go Archon of Amiria here. So they have Cradle, Shepherd, Reclaimer in hand. We still play out our land because we might draw another land so we can get our Hedron Crab up and running. Decks of main deck BUG Hogaak, a little bit mean. These Fiend Artisan decks tend to run 1 crop rotation from when I was looking earlier today. So it's a little bit unfortunate they had it in their opening hand. Obviously they could Reclaimer 1 up this turn anyway. So the only difference is we might have had a Bloodghast in play now, which would be better than what we have. Okay, so here's the Cradle that we know about. And they're going to play the 2 1-drops. Yeah. Sorry, they can play one of the 1-drops, can't they? So we take 1 here. A Cabal Therapy. There's no point trying to get this Hedron Crab in play just yet. Then we just have to Cabal Therapy our opponent. We'll name Allosaurus Shepherd because we can see it in their hand. And they have another Cradle. That's not too worrying. We really need to find a land to go with our Hedron Crab here. It doesn't take much to get the wheels of our deck spinning. Our opponent is almost certainly not going to have a second BUG Hogaak. Birds of Paradise, sure. And they're playing out their Cradle here. So they're doing this so they can Reclaimer at instant speed. Not sure that's... Oh, it also buffs their Reclaimers as well, which is probably the actual reason they're doing it, right? For 6 damage. Yeah, that makes way more sense. Sure. Let's draw. Okay, so we have a land here. Let's go and get an Underground Sea. Let's play our Crab. Let's play this. So we're going to hold priority here. And then we're going to crack this. And get ourselves another one. This means that we don't mill the land that we want to hit here. Which is a little trick you can do. Okay. So what do we hit? Cabal Therapies that we can't really use. Yeah, not great. So we need to have another turn here. We're going to take 6. Now our opponent can draw Natural Order at pretty much any point and kill us. So that's something to be worried about. An Allosaurus Shepherd. Okay, so this taps for 4 this turn. So on our next turn, our opponent can Allosaurus Shepherd and make a load of big lads. So we really need to do something here. So if we draw a fetch land, what does that do? Okay, a Dryad Arbor. This is a land that doesn't mill us. That doesn't get to cast this Vengevine. So last turn, if we'd have got the Dryad Arbor instead of the Bayou, we would be in a better position than we are now. because we wouldn't have drawn this Dryad Arbor, and if we'd have drawn a land instead, we'd be able to cast this guy. So we have a Vengevine that we can't cast. We have one bridge from below. So these don't have trample, which is something. We don't have any way of getting creatures back here. It's a case of, is the crab going to be better next turn, or is it going to be the Dryad Arbor? I think if we... This is just going to be a 1-1 blocker anyway. So I think we have to pass a turn and put some guys under the bus this coming turn. Our chances of winning this game are a little bit slim, but a fetch land can put a lot of cards in our graveyard. And maybe we can get enough guys to... Now, depending on what our opponent fetches here, we could be in some trouble. I'm not sure what they have. They might just be using this to thin to try and draw. Okay, so they're doing this just to get another threat on board. Okay, they're doing it to get rid of our bridge from blows. Okay, we only have one bridge from blows, so it's not that bad. Okay, yeah, so just getting a threat and removing our bridge. That's fine. Well, not fine, obviously, but they just draw a natural order. Wasteland. Yeah, so they're making all their elves really big, but only 3 of their creatures are elves. So we have to block here. So block on this guy, and we would take lethal damage. We have to block on this guy as well. So we only take 6 this turn and go to 5, but we are kind of out of all of our resources right now. So we can play this guy, but they have lethal attacks next turn, so we have to concede. All right, so our opponent's way of interacting with our graveyard is endurance, which is something that we don't really have a lot of ability to interact with. Our abrupt decays are going to be good here. These decks don't play Lane on the Void, so I think Thoughtseize to hit endurance before we start spinning our wheels is good. The Hogaak is less good because they can spin up a Caracas to bounce our creature. The Ultra Dementia can get hit by a what's it called? Collector Roof, which seems unlikely, but it's possible. Sylvan Library might be useful here. I don't know if we're just stripping out all of our Hogaaks. That seems crazy. I don't think we can strip them all out. We can definitely strip out at least 2, I think, here, because of the Caracas. We don't really need multiples of them either. You can probably trim an Altar of Dementia. Cabal Therapies and our discard suite is going to be important here. Putrid Imp is good. We kind of need all of our bits and pieces here. It's very hard to board with a deck where everything is so tight. I think the Putrid Imp is worse than the Careful Study for the most part, so I think we'll take that out from one of those. And then we have to decide if we do want the Sylvan Library or not. I think we probably do want the Sylvan Library just to attack our opponent's hand. And I'm going to board like this. So we could board in a Boseiju to hit our opponent's Cradle, but I think we should be just hitting the important creatures like Fiend Artisan and Allosaurus Shepherd. So that's where we got the decays. We got some discard to try and pick out some of the other bits and pieces. Okay, we can keep this. Because we have 2 Hydron Crabs here, what we can do is we can actually play the first one out turn 1, turn 2 play the second, then crack the fetch and mill ourselves for loads. The only problem is that's weak to an endurance. So I think we probably just crack this off straight away to hit them their endurance. Okay, so we can see the cards they have here. So the hand is a little bit slow. The Noxious Revival, they can hit cards in our graveyard. So that's a nice little bit of tech for them. What is this Once Upon a Time going to find? Probably an endurance. That's the way Magic the Gathering works sometimes. Archon of Emeria. Okay. So they're going to crack this Wooded Foothills and play their Elvish Reclaimer this turn. Unless they have one other card that they've drawn. So maybe slightly preemptive to click that one. Savannah into Elvish Reclaimer. Sure, so this can spin them up a BUG Hogaak next turn, which would be bad for us, obviously. But because we have the redundant Hedron Crab, we're actually doing alright here. Play this out. Hit us. Crack this for... I think we just want another Underground Sea, looking at the way our hand is right now. Pop our graveyard out so we can see what we're hitting. Cabal Therapy, and a Bridge from Below, and a Hogaak. We can't... actually, what we can do here is we play out this guy. We might be able to get Hogaak into play this turn. Our opponent can Noxious Revival something on top of our library, but we'll immediately get it back because this is going to mill it. Okay, so we have all of these. So we need to cast this Cabal Therapy, tagging our opponent, sacrificing our Stitches supplier. So we want the mill to come second, just in case they put something on top. So this is the thing we put on top, on the bottom of the stack. So we get a token if they want to ping our bridge from below before it mills. Okay, so we get to hit this. We get to shred our opponent's hand and make an 8/8 this turn if this resolves. Noxious Survival. The Hogaak is gone. So we will name the thing they can cast here. Sure. So this leaves them with Birds of Paradise, Natural Order, and Gaia's Cradle. Sure. Now we can Cabal Therapy again if we need to. And we know the top card of our library is a Hogaak, but we can Careful Study that away, so that's not an issue. Is it worth getting rid of the Birds of Paradise here? I think it probably is. So we will... We've got a lot of Cabal Therapies to work with, so we're just going to ping off and hit Birds of Paradise. This leaves them with Natural Order and Cradle. And next time we can hit the Natural Order because we're not worried about it this turn. Unless we want to just hit the... we can just take the Natural Order out of their hand right now because we're about to lose our graveyard anyway. So I don't hate that actually. So let's just get rid of the whole hand and get a token. Sure. So they have a Gaia's Cradle in hand. We don't really have a lot going on, but our opponent has even less going on because we've made them discard their whole hand. So they can play the Cradle out and then they can go and get BUG Hogaak. So we're getting a Hogaak here. So I think we do still Careful Study because we've got to work through what our opponent's presenting us. The Sylvan Library is nice here, so we want to get rid of the Hogaak and probably get rid of the other Careful Study here. Let me play this guy out. So we're not going to do the trick this turn. We don't have any bios in there, so it's unlikely we're going to mill all three. But we want to see if our opponent responds. So we can mill ourselves again here, but we don't need to right now. I think we can just attack with our token here. And we can just save this in the bank. Because obviously our opponent doesn't have anything going on because we removed their entire hand from the game. So they can BUG Hogaak us now, but then we've still got 3 mills available with the crab. Just sort of playing around the hay. Yeah, so we forced them to not do anything with their turn. Not that they really had anything to do with no cards in hand. But it means, again, they have to spend the whole turn holding up the mana for the Average Reclaimer. Tropical Island is unusual. Okay, so this turn we are cracking this because we would want the green mana for the Sylvan Library. So, we have a Gravecrawler. Let's see what happens when we try to cast this Gravecrawler. I suspect we are going to get BUG Hogaak. So this is on the stack, so we will get the Gravecrawler. Sure. Here goes our graveyard. But we get to refuel with Sylvan Library for exactly these sorts of situations where your opponent can hit your graveyard, but it's not like a permanent lock on your graveyard, like a Rest in Peace type effect, where you just need to rebuild momentum again. We've definitely lost a lot of tools that we were hoping for, but we might be able to cast this Vengevine and beat down the good old-fashioned way. Windswept Heath. So our opponent's still drawing lands, which is good for us, because most of the stuff in the deck is quite cheap. Leovold. Each opponent can't draw more than 1 card each turn. So if we use this Sylvan Library, that's bad for us. That's pretty annoying that they drew that one. Careful Study is also a bad one. Yeah, considering our opponent was Hellbent, that was an incredibly good draw against our very specific card we had. The Leovold is a singleton in their deck that they go and get with Fiend Artisan or Green Sun Zenith. So I'm a little bit annoyed about that one. But unfortunately, that is the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. Okay, so I can't kill this in combat, but if they attack with it, that's 1 less blocker if I can actually muster up some offense, like a Vengevine, which we only need a land to do. Sure, we've got quite a lot of life to work with. Oh, Sylvan Library. We play out another Gravecrawler. So what we can start doing is swinging 2 Gravecrawlers and then rebuying them, which is not really going to get us anywhere. They block 1, and they take what, 2 is about the best case scenario, but they're also going to be shooting up all sorts of nonsense here. So I think I can feel a little bit hard done by here, but these cards are in their deck for a reason, so okay, they're just getting another Dryad Arbor, so they can block our 2/1s very effectively. This also just makes natural order better and better the more creatures they have in play. So we take 3 again here. If we can draw a land, we can play a Vengevine, and that would change things quite a bit. A Birds of Paradise. A Hogaak. So we can play Careful Study to pitch 2 cards in our hand. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. So we can't play the Hogaak, but we can just use this to discard both the cards in our hand. And if the Grave Crawlers, which can't do anything anyway, let's see what happens with the Grave Crawlers. If they block and kill the Grave Crawlers, then I can play them both and get a Vengevine back. So take 2 here. We can cast this one. I think we need to keep this trick in our hand. The discard 2 cards trick. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're still a ways off from doing Hogaak things. But Hogaak would be bigger than all the stuff they can muster outside of a natural order. In comes the lad. Take another 3. What do we got here? A Bloodghast. So what can we do with Bloodghast? We can cast 2 creatures. So we can play the Bloodghast this turn and it will have haste, but we can't do our little trick here by doing that. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we can cast the Hogaak next turn. I think we attack with both Gravecrawlers. So our Bloodghast is hasty. We could have played the Bloodghast here. If we have 1 more mana, we could play... Like I said, Bloodghast does have haste. We kind of need another mana to do all of our things. Okay, so we can block. If we block with the Hedron Crab, that gives us another card for casting Hogaak next turn. And then we'll have an 8/8 Trampler against their 8 life total. I think we maybe should have played the Bloodghast pre-combat then, rather than holding out for this big turn. But if we can do the big turn, we can attack with a hasty Vengevine and then put a Hogaak into play. I think that's the way we probably win this game. That's unfortunate. I think we can feel pretty hard done by with the Leovold there. I think the majority of the time in that situation we win that game. I think it's very slim margins that we lose that game by. So if we'd have played the Bloodghast out last turn, we still die this turn anyway. But maybe it was right to... If we draw a land next turn, we get to do like everything. But sadly, we just missed out on that one. All right, we're just going to go to game 3. So this is our opening hand. Oh, okay, we're against Tony Scapone. So he is a Storm player. So we want to cast Cabal Therapy on him pretty sharpish. So we'll keep this. If he's still on the Mono Black Painter deck, we need to keep that in mind. So what is our play here? I think we have to do a Cabal Therapy, naming Lion's Eye Diamond. I'll probably get an Underground Sea here. Okay, this is our opponent's hand. All right. So we'll leave their hand popped out and we'll make sure our graveyard is popped out for future reference. Oh, that's their graveyard. We want our one popped out. Okay, so they're still on the Mono Black Painter deck, which I played the other day on my channel. So our opponent's hand is a little slow here. But we can strip out both of these Painter's Servants. So there goes the Saga. There's the Chrome Mox. They're imprinting a Dark Ritual. Okay, so we're getting Thoughtseize this turn. So we're probably going to lose our Stitcher's Supply because that's the thing that gets us a creature to Cabal Therapy away the Painter's Servants here. I suspect that's the name. This also mills us for 6 cards, which is exactly what our deck wants to do. So this can take away our engine and our ability to Cabal Therapy our opponent, but it does leave us with a Careful Study, which could do those things as well if we find a creature. Yeah, Stitcher's Supply. So that's the exact choice I thought I would do. And there's the Brainstone. So this costs 2 to crack. There's the Mox Opal. So we need to find a creature and nail these Painted Servants. Then we have to worry about the Ezra Saga tokens beating us down. But I think our aggro plan is better than theirs. Another Stitcher's Supply would be nice. A Gravecrawler. So I think we Start off with the Careful Study. We don't need a second Altar of Dementia, and we probably don't need this second land here. We play out this, we go and get ourselves a Bayou. We might as well cast this one from hand. Painted 7. Yep, so we get all of the cards from our opponent's hand now. We don't have a lot going on, but we can Altar of Dementia and then start doing some Gravecrawler stuff. It's going to be a little bit slow, but we've got to do the best we can do with ourselves here. This might... I don't think he has any Graveyard Hate in his main deck. So I think this turn the mana efficient play is to play this out. And then next turn we can Gravecrawler and do some shenanigans. Yep, so they're going to make a 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to be a 4-4 and it's going to be a 6-6 on attacks because they're going to make another one and they're going to go and get themselves an artifact. Quite what that artifact's going to be, I don't know, and I kind of dread thinking about it. It might just be a Shadow Spear and they might just be going for the race here, which would be fine. I think that's a pretty profitable way they can approach this game. Okay, so they're just doing a Brainstone line, which means the thing they were tutoring for might be something that was in their hand already, or they're just taking advantage of the free shuffle from the Ezra Saga here, because he considers it more important to get the Brainstone to fix his hand and get another threat. So they're probably not going on the beatdown plan here, which is a shame because I think I beat them in a heads-up beatdown plan, which is probably why Tony's decided not to do that. So there we go. A Manifold Key. Interesting. So this lets you untap Grim Monoliths as well as Witchclaw Talismans, which is pretty good. There's one of the aforementioned cards on Lion's Eye Diamond. Okay, so they've got a big old construct. And I don't have anything resembling a blocker, but if I can make this Hogaak somehow, then we'll be alright. This was probably one of the best draws that we have in our deck right now. So I don't mind that one at all. So we don't care about our opponent's hand, so we will... What do we play out here? I think we can just mill ourselves. We can mill ourselves for 4 here, or we can play the Gravecrawler out and mill ourselves. I think it's best just to mill ourselves with this guy. Okay, so we've got Bridge from Below. Got a Bloodghast there. How many bridges we got now? Still just the one. We can cast this guy like this. We can Cabal Therapy ourselves and play a Hogaak. Cabal Therapy, target us. Sacrifice this guy. Get a bridge token. Hogaak. So there's our Hogaak. And we cast this. So we tap this. Tap this. Then we exile this. 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 We get ourselves an 8/8. So we only have one Bridge from Below. So we can't just keep doing it this turn. Next turn we can. This can kind of blunt the offense here. We can always block and then sacrifice it to itself. Sacrifice it to the altar to mill ourselves. So I think we're in a solid position here. A Lotus Petal. Sure. He can give his creature unblockable if he wants to. Tap the Grim Monolith and the Manifold Key to give us unblockable. I think that's what this does, right? Target creature can't be blocked this turn. Yeah. I think just using the Grim Monolith is the way that I would pay for this. Yep. We can't block. Stitches Supply. Okay. Again, best draw in our deck. Okay. So this is pretty good for us. Let's mill ourselves with a Stitches Supply here. So this is 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Yep, so I think we can just combo ourselves out here. So we mill ourselves, sacrificing this guy because we have 2 bridges. So we'll mill ourselves for a bunch. And we play this guy with the Summoning Sick ones. Bayou, Dryad Arbor, Verdant Catacombs, Altar of Dementia, Martial Arts. This gets back the Vengevines. Wait, right. No, this is fine. And we're going to mill our opponent out this turn. Okay, so how many cards have we got left in our library? So, we mill this guy. Get some triggers. Replay this guy. So, black, black. There's quite a lot of clicks to have to do here, unfortunately. 4, 5. And we've still got a few more cards left in our library. So, sacrifice this guy. Get some more zombies. We need to mill our opponent for 47 here. Just kind of need to hit the rest of our bridge from below. Let's cast this. Get rid of this. Hedron crab. Ultra Dementia. Stitches supplier. Another crab. And then we'll pay black and black. Get this guy. We will mill ourselves using Ultra Dementia. So our whole library is in the graveyard. And we'll replay Hogaak. So black, black. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we sacrifice, start milling our opponent with this guy. Get a load of bridge triggers. Yeah, okay, so we're basically going to get 4. We're going to do this a couple more times and get 4 zombies as well. So we'll hit them for a big chunk. Okay, so we got the game 1. Force of Vigor, going to be very good against the painted deck. I kind of know everything in my opponent's deck, which is nice. So we have a lot of useful cards here. These are fine. They're not a graveyard deck, so we don't have to worry about that. Do they have ley lines? I think they have ley lines. We've got the cover with Force of Vigor. The Ultra Dementia is something that we can go off with here, so we also need the Hogaaks to do that with. The Careful Studies and things, I think we can probably trim. It's going to be difficult to work out what we trim here. We don't want to trim any Hogaaks and Vengevines because we need all of our green cards, because we're bringing these all in. The Abrupt Decays might be less good than the Boseiju. The Boseiju can't be Thought Seized away. Our opponent runs a lot of Thought Seized effects, usually 8. It's going to be a little tricky to work out what needs to go here. So maybe some Careful Studies and the Putrid Imp. We're looking for 5 more if we want to keep all these in. I think we need to keep all this in because that's our aggressive plan. I think the Bloodghast is one of the weaker things that we can bring back here. Is this enough? Do we trim and alter and get another decay in? We've weakened our core plan, but okay, we submitted a 61 card deck there. Oops. But our plan is to attack our opponent's hand. This doesn't attack our opponent's hand, but it does stop them being able to do. We have turn 1 Gravecaller, turn 2 Ultra of Dementia with Force of Vigor. So this doesn't affect our opponent's Storm thing. I think we have to mulligan and find a discard spell here. Okay, we need to find something that taps for mana would be a start. So we're going to ship this one. I'm going to keep these. We don't want these. So this is... Okay, so we have 2 ley lines over there. That's fine by me for now. I'm more worried about my opponent killing me. Okay, so this turn we go and get Underground Sea. Attacking our opponent. So what are the scary things we have here? They play out any 0 drops they had. So I think we are just looking at Painter's Servant again here. Shift Traitors and Infernal Tutor. Okay, so let's see if that pops out. We will need to find an answer to these Leyline in the Void at some point. Okay, so they have a Swamp in hand. And do we play our land out this turn? I don't think we do play our land out. Like if we hit a Force of Vigor, we want to be able to just explode with our Hedron Crab. Yeah. So we have to beat the Construct beatdown. I suspect they might have Graveyard Hate built into their Urza Saga, but they probably don't think they need it with the double ley line, but they might still get it for insurance. A Brainstem. Okay, so you just want to fix that hand. Cool. Well, not cool, but... Okay, so there's an Ancient Tomb. It's going to get bashed up. A Bridge from Below. It's not really what I would describe as the one. I think we cast this. Let's see what we mill here. Some lands that we didn't want, sure. I think if we'd have kept that first hand that we thought was too slow, we would have won this game. So it's interesting how things work out. So we take 5 this turn. So we take 10 this turn, I think. Because we'd rather be able to, if we can Force of Vigor away the ley lines, we can at least get some action going. They're cracking the Brainstone. There's a Swamp we know about. A Thought Seize. That doesn't really do it for us here, does it? So we have 2 blockers if we need them. If we only block one of them, that shuts off our fetch land. So I think if we're shutting off our fetch land, either way, they both mill 3. But this is a zombie. That's a tricky block. I'm in a pretty horrible position and it probably won't matter, but... Okay. Is there an argument here for Sylvan Library to help us find the answers we require? Don't think we need this abrupt decay. So we've got the Passageau there anyway. So we have the Sylvan Library. Oh, we just submitted 61 again. Oops. Oh, that's fine. So I have to imagine he's going to focus heavily on a leyline hand because we can just pick apart his hand with really early Cabal therapies so he doesn't get to have a really powerful turn 1. So we'll say yes here. Is Thoughtseize good enough here, or do we need to find... I think we need to mulligan to answer to leyline. This hand does nothing. This hand is okay. We can keep this. So we don't need this. We don't need this. This isn't spectacular. I suspect they're putting a leyline to play. Yeah, sure. So what this hand does is it discards them and provides us with a threat. Infernal Tutor, a Lotus Petal. I think we have to take the Thoughtseize here, which is a bit weird. So it'll take them a couple of turns to get the Infernal Tutor. If they Thoughtseize us, we won't have anything. If we Infernal Tutor them, they won't have anything. I have a much higher density of playable cards in my deck. Just as guys, because I've got lots of like 1 mana 2/1s and stuff like that, which can at least beat down. Whereas our opponent doesn't really have that. So there's the Airborg, and there's a Thoughtseize. So we lose our Gravecrawler here. And then they have a Lion's Eye Diamond Ledger. So they're probably playing out the Petal as well here, and the Mox Opal. Yep, there it is. I think we play this one out. Even though it's a fetch land, it does provide us with blue mana when the time comes. So now we're just sitting here waiting for one of us to draw action. The action that our opponent can draw is more severe, I would say, because they can build up for a ad nauseum. But we have more action. It's just not as good. Yikes. Okay, that's a pretty good one. Ooh. Okay, we're just going to pass it through a turn here. We want to keep 1 land back. Sure, so our opponent's going to ad nauseam this turn. They just drew better than us, and that's sadly how it goes sometimes. Appearance Abyss, okay. That's a bit better than ad nauseam. They should be able to win from this point. As a Chromox, we have to not just yield so that we can at least let them think about Force of Vigor. Monolith. They should be able to discard us as well at this point. Maybe we just concede the game. Yeah, it was a bit of a shame, that one. I think this matchup actually looks alright. If we'd have kept that first hand that looked pretty bad, that was just the Altar, Force of Vigor, and the Gravecrawler, I think we probably win that game. We are under the gun a little bit from the Urza Saga token, but I think we can do okay there. But that's a bit of a shame that we lost that one. Alright, on to the next round. Okay, so this hand is pretty good. We can go Crab into Crab Fetch, or we can do Cabal Therapy into Crab Fetch. So I think we've got some options here, so we should keep this. We'll see what our opponent plays on turn 1 and see if we feel the need to play a Crab or to play the Cabal Therapy on turn 1. A Wooded Foothills. A Once Upon a Time. So this is going to give us a little indication what our opponent's playing, which is nice. Well, I'd rather have been on the play and just played the Crab. Elvish Reclaimer. Okay. So we're just going to get hit by another BUG Hogaak main deck. Such is life. So I think this turn we just go down ground C. And we play out the Crab. And we say go. So we can pick apart our opponent's hand, but we're going to get BUG Hogaak pretty hard here. Now if our opponent commits anything to the board here, using their mana so they don't have 2 available, like this, then we are in a good spot, because we might be able to just play a whole bunch of stuff. Allosaurus Shepherd. Okay. If they have a Cradle here as well, yeah, okay, they have it all. Sure. So I suspect they just don't tap the Cradle for anything now. Okay, they're going for a natural order kill next turn. Or are they trying to go off right now with something? This speaks that they have a natural order in hand. To me, at least. Alright, so we might be able to get a pretty good turn here. Our opponent could have an endurance. They tend to only play one in the deck, main deck, these sorts of decks. But maybe we're going to get stunk by it. Let's have a look. Let's play a Hedron Crab. Let's mill ourselves. And we'll crack this. I think we'll get the green source this time. Yes. So let's see. Let's pop our graveyard out so we can have a little look what delights we are getting. A Cabal Therapy there is relatively nice. And a Hogaak and a bridge from below. Another bridge would be great, provided our opponent doesn't have an endurance in hand. We can cast a Hogaak this turn still. Our opponent is waiting on this last one because if they have an action, they can do it in response to this last one, whereas I get priority. So I can put a Cabal Therapy on the stack, for example, for my graveyard. They did have the endurance. What did they exile? Once Upon a Time. So this is usually a singleton in these decks, so it's a little bit annoying. But one of those days, I think. So they've stacked this wrong because they're going to shuffle the bridge from below into our deck instead of exiling it. So then we mill ourselves for 3 here. So we've got a bridge from below, we've got a Hogaak. I think unfortunately what we have to do here is Cabal Therapy our opponent and name Natural Order. There's a Natural Order, sure. And that is why we did that. So we're kind of doing alright here. Our opponent can go and get the BUG Hogaak next turn, which is again a pain for us. So the reason they didn't do it is because they had the endurance. Okay, so they naturally had the BUG Hogaak. That's better for us because we get to mill ourselves with this. We did lose a bridge from below and a Hogaak and a Cabal Therapy. So it hit us a bit, but at least we don't have to play around at instant speed, which is a real help for us. They can attack with 3 guys and do us 1 damage, but they won't have any blockers for anything I do. Okay, so let's play this one out. And I'm going to crack this first. And I think we want a Bayou here. What are we going to have? A Bloodghast. Nothing else on that one. A Bloodghast and a Hogaak. Those are both good. So then we can play out our Stitcher Supplier. I think we're in the driving seat here. So we get to mill ourselves. And we got ourselves one of those. We don't have... We have a Gravecrawler in the bin that we can bring back. We'll cast that. This will be the second creature spell of the turn, so we get Vengevine. We don't have any bridge from belows, which is the slight problem here. We can still cast a Hogaak this turn, though. But we can play this guy out first. We cast this Hogaak. So black, black, 1. And just get rid of 1, 2, 3, 4. So this gives us the most cards left in our library, in our graveyard for more Hogaaks, if we're going to be doing sacrificing Hogaak shenanigans. So we played through BUG Hogaak and Endurance in the first 3 turns of the game. So I don't feel too bad about that. Untapped target creature. Okay, they're just getting a Dryad Arbor. Okay. Okay. Yep, so they blocked and bounced the damage there. They've got the Caracas. They can bounce our Hogaak whenever they like. That's fine. I think we can win this game without the Hogaak, as long as they don't top deck a Natural Order. There's the Allosaurus Shepherd that we knew they had, because they just bounced it. And a Fiend Artisan. So this is a 2-2. This would be a good turn to draw a Careful Study. A Marsh Flats. That's not the worst. So let's move on to these. Mill ourselves, and I think we crack in response here and go and get ourselves an Underground Sea. Mill ourselves, and let's start seeing what we find. Okay, so we've got a bridge from below there. We're looking for Cabal Therapies, so we can Cabal Therapy our bridge from below from our hand. There's a Cabal Therapy. So they can do the bounce trick here, which is annoying for us. And problem is if any of their guys die, we lose the bridge from below. We only have 1 bridge from below though. We'll just send the Hogaak in. We know it's getting bounced. But that's fine. We've got 17 cards left in our library. So I think we cast this guy. Cast this guy. This will bring back our Vengevine. I wasn't expecting the Hogaak to connect. So next turn we can attack with loads. And we kind of got enough that we can soak up a lot of damage if we need to. And we only have one bridge from below. So I don't know how much point there is of trying to Cabal Therapy ourselves here. I think we can just wait and do it next turn. Alright. We have a lot of lads. Sure. So this removes the bridge from below. Which is another reason I didn't want to put the other one in my graveyard. Don't know what they're finding here. Another Dried Arbor. Okay, so that was just to do the bridge from below. We need them to not draw. They don't have enough for Crater Hoof this turn. Okay, so they can Fiend Artisan up a Crater Hoof now. This untaps any creature, right? Untap target creature. Yeah, okay. This is a little bit awkward for us. I think they can kill us here. Gonna have to do some maths when they attack, because maths is for blockers, right? So how much damage can we soak up here? 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So we can ignore this and a little bit. So we're still taking, what, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Yeah, so we're still dead. Okay, we need our opponent not to hit a cradle there. But sometimes your opponent will hit lots of cradles. Sure. I feel we're very unlucky to lose that one again. We're sort of losing by very, very small margins here, which is upsetting. All right, so we get these 2 Thoughtseize in, so we can pick apart a Endurance proactively. We want these Abrupt Decays, and I like the Sylvan Library here. That's 6 cards. The Hogaak is less good because of their ability to Caracas it, but we still want a couple, I think, for the purposes of doing Alter to Wrencher things. I think Putrid Imp is probably quite weak here. The Bloodghasts aren't great, so we can probably trim on those. Maybe a Careful Study goes, and an Altar of Dementia. Right. Okay, this lets us Cabal Therapy, but we're going to need to find some lands here. I think we can keep this. If we draw a single land, then we are golden, I think. We can probably miss the land drop on turn 2 and still be okay. So we've got two turns to hit a land here. This gets Underground Sea. We cast Cabal Therapy, target Elvish Reclaimer. Next turn, we Stitch a Supplier. And we can Cabal Therapy for something else. If we draw a land, though, we can Head on Crab, make the land, mill ourselves, then we can play the Stitch a Supplier and then Cabal Therapy. Our opponent took a very long time to do their mulligan decision there. Right, let's crack this for an Underground Sea. Let's Cabal Therapy our opponent. We don't need the Elvish Reclaimer. They didn't have the Reclaimer, but they have an Endurance and a Noxious Revival. More like Obnoxious Revival. Way. Alright. So they can pitch Dried Arbors to the Endurance if they need to. Okay, so with this turn, we are actually going to cast the Gravecrawler and sacrifice this to the Cabal Therapy, because we expect our opponent is going to respond with the Endurance. They did not respond. These cards plus a Gaia's Cradle. Alright. Why would Symbiote? Sure. And there's a Cradle. And a Zenith for 1. This is going to be Elvish Reclaimer, which can then get BUG Hogaak. I think we are in trouble here. We didn't hit land. Well, there's a lot of action in our graveyard, but I don't know how much time we're going to have to deploy it because our opponent is threatening a BUG Hogaak next turn. We really need a land. There's one of the Dried Arbors. Lady's got the Natural Order in hand. They do. Sure, so this is... Each of them get +4/+4, so this is going to... Okay, we'll just let them resolve it, and then we'll have a look. Sure. This matchup doesn't feel very good, because they have lots of main deck hate, as well as more sideboard hate. Yep, so we are dead here. Sure. This feels like a nightmare matchup, but I'm not actually a big fan of this particular build of the sort of like the mid-range elves. It just feels like it really struggles to beat control decks, because you take out specific pieces. Like if you take out Fiend Artisan, Allosaurus Shepherd, and can counter natural order, the deck doesn't really do anything in my opinion. But yeah, well, they smashed us because they got this graveyard hate, and we bricked pretty hard on draws there. All right, let's go to the final round, I think. Okay, so we're on the play for this round. Our hand doesn't really do anything, so we have to mulligan it. This hand also doesn't really do anything, but has less lands. So this is going to be another mulligan. This hand, on the other hand, seems pretty good to me. So we keep this. We don't need a second Altar of Dementia. I think we can probably bin off the second Cabal Therapy here and be done with it. I think we just play out the Stitches Supply this turn. Okay, that's not a bad hit. So we get a Bridge from Below token next turn. A basic Mountain. Okay. A Vengevine. So I think we Careful Study first. Get rid of these two cards. Play this land out. Go and get, I think it's probably a bio here. Target our opponent with this one. I suspect our opponent is probably on some sort of prison deck. So I'm going to say Goblin Rabble Master, because I think that is one of the things that is most scary that they can have here. Whoa! Oakley dokely. This Jessica's Will doesn't look great, to be honest. But we can Cabal Therapy them, sacking our guy, get some Bridge from Below triggers, get ourselves some zombies, and I think we have to name Jessica's Will. They have 3 of them here. That seems too much value for me to pass up. So they have Manamorphose, Seething Song, and next time we can start Altar of Dementuring. An Ancient Tomb, sure. A Manamorphose, yep. This is going to be the Seething Song. No, it's the Reckless Impulse, sure. Desperate Ritual. So they have plenty of mana, but they need somewhere to go with it. So they can cast these on their next turn, which is what they're doing. We get attacks. Cast the Altar. I think we mill ourselves, sacrificing one of these goblins, one of these zombies. A Gravecrawler. That's exactly why we did this. Get this Gravecrawler out. We'll Cabal Therapy our opponent, sacrificing this Gravecrawler. And we'll name this Seething Song we know our opponent has. Yeah, so we get the 2 Seething Songs and leave them with just a Mountain. And I don't think we need to Altar of Dementia anymore this turn. We can do it all next turn. And we can cast the Vengevine quite easily next turn from the graveyard. Ruby Medallion, sure. So they're not going anywhere right now. They just have mana. But they want to put these in their graveyard in case they draw a Past in Flames later. It's much better in the graveyard than in the exile. That's what we draw here. A Vengevine. Oakley dokely. We cast this one for black. Mill ourselves, sacking the Gravecrawler. Get some Bridge from Below tokens. Cast it again. Get the Vengevine back. Mill ourselves with the Gravecrawler. Get some more lads. Play the Gravecrawler again. And then we go to attacks. Okay. Our opponent has 1 card. Okay, they're killing themselves with Ancient Tomb. Gotta respect it. So, a Storm deck, you say. So these Force of Vigors can blow up their Ruby Medallions. This Thoughtseize can manipulate their hand. This Boseiju can manipulate stuff as well. The Leyline of the Void can impact a Past in Flames kill, but I don't know if I want to board in the Leylines. I think it might be too excessive. We can trim on a Hogaak. We can trim on a couple of Bloodghasts. Probably trim on a Careful Study or 2. Putrid Imp can go, as per usual. Maybe an Altar. We're just kind of like slightly reducing some of our bits and pieces here. I think we get rid of the Crab. Losing one of our Hogaaks is a bit annoying when we're bringing in Force of Vigor, so maybe we do want the last Hogaak, and maybe we trim out a Bloodghast. We'll try it like this. This hand makes turn 1 Stitches Supply, but needs a land to do anything else. Is that good enough? I don't think so. This hand has Gravecrawler and Force of Vigor, but that's about it. We can cast the Force of Vigor off of Dried Arbor, or we can cast the Force of Vigor off of the other Force of Vigor. I think because this actually interacts with our opponent, who is a combo deck, I think we should keep this. We don't want these bridges. Being able to blow up the Rude Medallion and the ley line is important. So, all right. So we are on medium man beatdown. So we want underground seas in case we draw careful studies. Go gadget Gravecrawler. We can play out the Dryad Arbor to beat down with as well, and then use the Force of Vigors to blow up their artifacts and or enchantments. So they play a Rude Medallion here, be the best thing for us. Then we get to blow that and the ley line up, because we don't actually need to blow up the ley line yet. Okay, go attacks. And play out my 1/1. Okay, so we've got 5 Almighty Power on the board. An Ancient Tomb. Sure. Burgi. This is a good one. I cannot hit this with Force of Vigor. This is one of the reasons that you might want an Abrupt Decay here. But I don't think you can dilute the deck too much. You can still hit Horn of Harrenfell with the Force of Vigor. So they're playing this guy out as a blocker. I see. Another Gravecrawler. We'll play this guy out. We're holding the land in hand in case you draw a Hedron Crab. I really want to snag 2 things with this Force of Vigor. I don't think hitting the ley line is enough. I think we have to impact our opponent's game plan as well. Reckless Impulse. Sure. Seething Song, Rite of Flame. So they've got mana this turn. Mana is not going to be the issue for them, which is nice. So we're looking to hit the Horn of Harrenfell with the Force of Vigor here. That is our plan. If they play one. Yep, so this is going to take them up to a lot of mana. 7. A Burning Wish. Yep, can't do anything about that. This could be an Empty the Warrens. It's not a massive one though. Could just be a Galvanic Relay to go and get a nice sort of re-up next turn. Inspired Tinkering. I think this is the one that makes treasures. Exile top 3 cards of your library. You may play those until the end of your next turn, and you get 3 treasure tokens. Yeah, okay. So you can blow up treasure tokens, but our hand isn't great here. So I'm going to keep going. I think because we don't care about the Ley Line of the Void this turn anyway, I think we just wait until our opponent plays like a Horn of Harrenfell. I think we can't hit any of the treasure tokens because they just pop them in response. So we're kind of sat here with a do nothing spell in hand right now. Okay, Burning Wish. This could be getting a Past in Flames. That'd be pretty good. There it is. See, we could have ley lines for this, but I think they can get other things here that still win them the game without having to get the Past in Flames at this point, because they are so far ahead with how their combo's going. I'm unlikely to be able to snipe anything here. Yep. So they're going to generate loads of mana, and they're going to see loads more cards again with the Inspired Tinkering and Jesk as well. Many Galvanic Relays. As soon as they don't kill us this turn, they will have the ability to Galvanic Relay for a whole bunch. There's the Rite of Flame. Jesk as well. More Burning Wishes. So they should be able to just kill us here with Reckless Impulse. Oh, bonus round. Okay, bonus round, Burning Wish. Wait, they need a little bit more mana than what they have right now. Yeah, okay, that helps. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So they've got 8 mana in their pool. I'll let them do the maths. But they should have this one, I think. Okay, I don't think they actually needed to bonus round here. But they can wish to go and get Grape Shot. And then they can Grape Shot us. So if they show us the Grape Shot, we can concede. They also get something else off their Burning Wish as well, which is good for them. So there's the Grape Shot. So we might as well just concede now. Alright. So, back to sideboarding. I think this time will be better because we're on the play, so we get to interfere with their hand with our 6 discard effects, and if we can get our ball rolling and just mess them up with Force of Vigors on their ley lines and stuff, I think we'll be a-okay. We could swap a Hogaak for a library. I don't hate that if we're trying to get through ley lines potentially. And it's a green card for the purposes of what we're doing with the Force of Vigors. Alright. This hand is unkeepable and rubbish, I think. We can blow up a ley line, but we just don't do anything and they just kill us. So what does this do? It's Careful Studies. Our opponent's begun the game with 7 cards in hand. I don't think this is good enough to beat a Storm player. This, on the other hand, is good enough to beat a Storm player. So we get rid of this, And we have to get rid of one other card. I think it's between the library and the careful study. I think we've been off the careful study because we don't have the mana for it, either of these, and this is the better one. I think so. I did not start off with a ley line in play. That is interesting. So we get to hit our opponent here. What is the name here? So Rite of Flame is the thing that usually lets them go on turn 1. But Burgi is one of the best payoffs in their deck. And Ruby Medallion is very good. So maybe we name the Medallion. Let's try this. Okay. So they can do a little relay turn. But next turn we can hopefully mash apart their hand. Okay, so the Ancient Tomb and the Lotus Petal. Unfortunately, the stuff in relay is stuff we can't discard. So this is a little bit awkward. I wish that was a Thought Seize instead of a Cabal Therapy, to be honest. We can take the Galvanic Relay. Okay. Let's see what they're getting here. A Burgi. That's pretty good. Alright, it's time to try and let us do our study stuff. Let's cast this. We can't hit anything in our opponent's hand. We can have a guess though, still. But let's see what we mill. Let's leave our graveyard up there. So I think we have to Cabal Therapy our opponent. Sacrifice this little guy. Mill some cards. Not great. What do we name? So I have Jessica's Will. So the thing we are most worried about is them getting chunks of mana going. So the biggest mana producer they have is Seething Song. So I think we need to hit the Seething Song here because we know they can cast it. Bonus round Burning Wish. Okay. Just swing and a miss. We've got a lot of zones to keep track of here. I think they can have us pretty soon. So this turn they just make the Burgi. Unless they might Jessica's Will instead. Yeah, okay. Okay, they're using that to add mana so it's in their graveyard. That makes sense. Yeah. So all of these are gone now. So our opponent needs to find things. We also need to find things, but we can't seem to do that. Okay, let's just Cabal Therapy our opponent again. I think Burning Wish is the scariest thing right now. Okay, so we are having mana troubles again. And they've got a Ruby Medallion, which produces a red mana, so they can play a City of Traitors here. So they get the bonus round, which gives them a little bit of mana here. Then they can cast this Reckless Impulse, which gives them 1 red mana. So they might be able to keep going here. We can just F6 this turn. Do your work. Okay, a Lotus Petal and a Seething Song. That doesn't really go anywhere. But they can cast them next turn. Okay, there's a mountain. It's our time to do something. Okay, so we have to play the Sylvan Library, I think, is the best way we have a chance next turn of doing something a bit broken. So we have to fade a turn from our opponent here. Right, they need to draw action. Right, they know we're F6 here. So what have you got for us, opponents? A Lotus Petal, adding mana to their mana pool. Lotus Petals being 2 red mana is pretty cool. Okay, another Lotus Petal. Mana is not their issue. So they're going to cast these regardless because they'd rather have them in their graveyard than in the exile zone. The question is whether or not they have anything to go with it. But they did not. Okay, it looks like they're casting another spell here, which is a little worrying for us. Okay, so just casting a Leyline in the Void. Bit rude. It doesn't affect the stuff that's already in the graveyard, but it affects future graveyard stuff. Let's have a look. Yes, I would like to use my ability. This doesn't seem particularly good. We will keep these in our hand because we kind of have to. I think we careful study. We're looking for. Okay, a Boseiju blows up the ley line here, but we're going to take 3 this turn, so they only need a tiny little thing to get us. This gets a blue. So if we discard a Vengevine, and do we need the Vengevine? So the best thing we can do next turn is Hedron Crab, and then do a big fetch land. And then try and go off. So I think we're binning off the Vengevine and the Gravecrawler. I think that's the best thing we can do here. We play this out. We don't want to give them a mana straight away, so we're going to wait until their end of turn. We might have to pivot into hitting their Ruby Medallion if something goes wrong. Like if they cast something that's going to give them a load of cards. But we're going to be on 2 life after this. Yeah, so it's going to be pretty bad for us going forwards. We can't keep cards off the Sylvan Library either. Okay, so we have to crack this. We go and get ourselves a blue source. We'll then channel this to blow up the Leyline of the Void. So this is green and blue. So we have a fighting chance here. Our opponent only has 2 cards in hand. Sylvan Library's got to be good. We would like to use it. Okay. So we put back a crab and a fetch land. We can't crack the fetch land, but we can certainly play some crabs. These also block the Burgie, which isn't the worst. And this will mill the bad stuff off the top of our library. Okay, a Cabal Therapy. This will give us some creatures. No, actually, I don't think it is. I think it's better to keep these in play so I can block one and block for more turns if our opponent's going to. Like if our opponent draws business, it shouldn't really matter what they have in hand. I don't think, because they have the Burgie and the Medallion in play, so all of their spells are pretty big right now. So this is going to attack. We get a blocks. We lose our crab. We gain a bridge from below token. Our opponent played a mountain. And it's our turn. I would like to use the ability. Force of Vigor. We don't really want the Force of Vigor. We'll put this on top. And this on top. Then we'll play a land for the turn. And mill ourselves. Yes, I would like to have my Bloodghast back. And we'll mill ourselves with the Hydron Crab. So we still have a Cabal Therapy here. Our opponent has City of Traitors and one other thing. I don't think we can attack here just yet either. Actually, if they kill our blocker, we'll get a Bridge from Below token, right? So I think we attack. We only have 1 Bridge from Below, so I don't really want to use the Bloodghast yet. Now, if we can get them down to 10, it means that all of our Bloodghasts will have haste. If they have a Grape Shot, they kill us anyway, so... Okay, they've got Burning Wish. Okay, a bonus round. I see. Reckless Impulse. Let's see what they get. Rite of Flame. That doesn't do it. Rite of Flame, Ruby Medallion. That doesn't do it either. And we know they have a City of Traitors in hand. They get to cast more things, but they leave this Rite of Flame in exile for next turn. They probably play... They've already played... Okay. This attacks. So we have to block with our crap, unfortunately. Come on, Sylvan Library. That's not really one we want. Stitch's Supplier is very good though. So put this on top of a library. Put this on top of a library. We get to clear these Hogaaks off. And we get to make the Hogaak this turn as well. And we can Cabal Therapy our opponent. Just to mill ourselves, I think is fine here. So where is it? Cabal Therapy. Target our opponent. We know what our opponent has in hand is the City of Traitors. We're doing this so we mill more cards. Okay, so there's a Bridge from Below there. Bridge from Below. We know they have a City of Traitors. There it is, yeah. And now we cast a Hogaak. So we tap this guy. We tap this guy. And we get rid of this, 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 this. So this gets us our Vengevine. So this is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we can't kill them this turn. So we may as well just attack with the Vengevine. And then next turn we have lethal. Now our opponent has to brick for 1 more turn. It's certainly possible. I played a mountain from exile. I'm casting the Rite of Flame. This could be worrying. Wish. Oh, okay, they just get to wish for the Grape Shot and kill us. Okay, GG. Yeah, okay, we needed them to brick for 1 more turn and they didn't. So, yeah, we can't complain too much because we did find some good stuff, but we did have a Sylvan Library to find the good stuff. So it's not as if we were drawing 1 card a turn, we were drawing 3 cards a turn. So the chance of us finding a hit was quite high. So I'm a little bit upset to have lost this one. Again, we're sort of just on the offside of some of the margins. So let's have a look at the deck. So this is the deck. We went 1-4 with this deck, which is a very poor record. But our matchups were really, really close still. The matchups we lost were relatively close for the most part. We nearly managed to beat the person who had the endurance BUG Hogaak draw. They were basically like one draw step away, but they just happened to draw the natural order. Just like in that last game, our opponent happened to draw the wish for grape shot. So we were just on the wrong end of things. But I will say this deck has some serious limitations because we don't really interact with our opponent outside of the Cabal therapies. And people just playing, like two of the top decks, well, or two of the most played decks at the moment are both running Elvish Reclaimer as a 1-drop. Now, if they play an Elvish Reclaimer on 1 on the play, your graveyard is gone. And there's nothing you can really do about it, which feels problematic. Endurance is a very popular card that's in a lot of decks right now, for obvious reasons. So all the splash hate for graveyards because of Delver and Reanimator is just kind of smashing onto Hogaak. And whilst we can play without the graveyard better than other decks can, because we have just some little guys that we can play and beat with, which is better than just having these uncastable threats. So at least if they mulligan to a ley line, we can play like 1 mana, 2/1s, 2 mana, 2/1s, and maybe curve into a Vengevine and just kind of get a beatdown plan if our opponent mulligans to Oblivion to find the ley line. But the issue is there's so many, but that like our deck is really, really nerfed if we don't have the graveyard. And there's so many decks with main deck graveyard out right now. Like we didn't play against the main deck leyline decks like the Helm decks today. So that was something. But we got paired against the crop rotation for BUG Hogaak, Endurance in the main deck, and Elvish Reclaimer for BUG Hogaak, all in the main deck. So we got paired against that deck twice. So it's hardly surprising that our record is a bit poor. Now if we were playing against sort of the control-y decks, I think we'd be doing okay. But the problem is control decks are bad in the format right now. And they're only going to get worse because the more people play the white Stompy deck, the harder it is to play control, because you have both Urza Saga decks that can put lethal threats into play that control decks can't counter, as well as White Plume Adventurer type stuff. So if they stick one of their initiative guys, you have to beat the initiative and their creatures, and a lot of control decks just can't do that very efficiently. So control at the moment is just very bad in the format, which leads us on to the problem that if control decks are bad, combo decks are also pretty good right now, because you don't want a game to go particularly long because you have these stompy decks and stuff like that. So you end up with lots of combo decks, and decks like Storm, so 2 of our losses were to Storm, they just go in right under the radar of what we're doing. So we can make some guys, and yes, we can have some really broken stuff and go off on turn 2, but most of the time we kind of need 3 or 4 turns to really put a game away. And that's too many for like the Epic Storm, the Epic Gamble, the Mono Black Painter Storm, Ruby Storm like we just played against. All of these decks can just outrace us. And whilst we can interfere with them with some discards, so we did get very close to beating the Mono Black Painter Storm, and we did get very close to beating the Ruby Storm. I think on average, it's going to be a coin flip at best. And if you lose the die roll, you're probably just going to lose those games, which puts Hogaak in a really awkward spot. Now, its matchup against Delver probably isn't the worst, because we have, you know, we have little Cabal therapies, we have all these like threats that aren't the most impressive. So they don't need to be, so, you know, they can lightning bolt a Hedron Crab, but we're going to get some mill out of it straight away. And then they can, you know, there's no point bolting Grave Crawlers and stuff like that. But again, they can make a turn 2 8/8 pretty much, which is, or a turn 3 8/8 I think. So, which is kind of what we're trying to do. But they can do it, and theirs have flying, and they have counter spells, and they have other threats, and the ability to filter for the cards they want. So even though on paper you look like you can have some game against Delver, because they don't have really, really heavy graveyard hate, they can still just get you and Delver you. So I'm not really sure Hogaak's in a particularly good spot in the meta. I quite like the deck and the way it functions. I really like what I like to call 60-card combo decks, where the whole deck is sort of a big synergy pile that builds into doing other stuff and feeds itself. Things like Dredge is another example. Storm, you know, these sorts of decks where they are very, very dedicated to their plan. The only problem is this plan is much weaker than the other combo decks around at the moment, even if its beatdown plan is a little bit better when it's not being able to do its more combo-y things. I'd like to say a few words about the sideboard. The Abrupt Decays are obviously be very good against Delver, but they're not very good against all the non-blue decks that we're getting paired against at the moment. So if we had Assassin's Trophies, that gives us 8 cards that come in and blow up ley lines. But unfortunately, we didn't have that. So there's a trade-off whether you run Trophy or Decay. The Sylvan Library was excellent. I think that's a great choice for this deck. The Thought Seizers, we were boarding them in for these combo matchups which are weak against. I think we possibly could do with some more of that sort of thing, because we're kind of having to play a bunch of cards to deal with the things that can ruin our day. And then we've got this to try and deal with things that go faster than us. But the problem is there's too many decks that go faster than us, so I'm not sure the sideboard can necessarily handle all of those. And again, when you play Magic, you have to decide what you're losing to. And this deck is losing to those sort of mid-rangey, sort of Elvish Reclaimer style decks, unfortunately. And I don't really think there's anything we can do about that. But again, we don't have a huge amount of the sideboard apart from like the Abrupt Decays are kind of okay with that. Thoughtseize is kind of okay and also hits the combo matchups. So I think I maybe would like a third Thoughtseize and then maybe swap these 2 Decays into Assassin's Trophies, just because having uncounterable stuff is less important now than I think it was. But again, there's a lot of decks in Legacy, and what you get paired against basically defines how your league is going to pan out. And today, ours panned out very poorly. So we got absolutely bopped by the 2 main deck Graveyard Hate decks, and we got bopped by the... Well, we didn't get bopped, but we got beaten 2-1 by the 2 Storm decks where, you know, there were very fine margins that came down to it. And to be fair, it was a very fine margin that we lost to one of the sort of the bad matchup Fiend Artisan decks. So I think this deck is okay. I don't think it's the most powerful thing you can do with your graveyard, but you have to play through the most powerful Graveyard Hate because you're a graveyard deck. So it's not where you want to be. It's certainly not where I want to be in the meta at the moment, which is a shame because I love how the deck functions. All right, I think I've spoken about this one enough, and I know there's a lot of people who love Hogaak out there, and I hope you enjoyed this content. Even though the league didn't go very well, I thought there were some really good matches with a lot of back and forth and some interesting play. So I hope you enjoyed that. And if you did enjoy that, you know what you can do? You can scroll down and hit that subscribe button. That'll really help me out. And if you've already subscribed, you can leave a like or a comment. And if you've already done that, you can send a link to a friend who might really want to watch some Hogaak content, or just general Legacy content, because I make 5 videos a week. Alright, that's me done for today. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.